Assalamu alaikum everyone. Starting in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the merciful. I'm Rana Tahir, your teacher, your facilitator, and the course we are studying through this semester is Technical and Business Writing. Students, you all know very well that we are having online series of lectures during this pandemic, COVID-19. And since we have started our online series of lectures from the very first week of June, and it is towards the end of June, and we have been through several types of compositions which have been proposed by the HSC and which are very much important for you all at this stage, and more importantly, once you will be leaving the portals of this university, your alma mater. So you must be exposed with all the different technical and business writing, as the crux of this course is making students enabled to identify the different types of writings which are suitable in different situations and their formats and the other aspects of those topics which are to be well understood at this stage. So once you will become a professional, once you will be practicing in the business environment, so you must be well known to all the different types of writings which are quite needful and you come across every now and then. Previously, what we have been through in our previous classes, it was all about writing formal emails, formal letters, summaries, reports, argumentative compositions, narrative compositions, discursive compositions, and the different types of letters which are sent for different purposes, like letters of invitations, letters of complaints, letters of information where the writer seeks some information, and we have been through their formats, their different styles which are in practice, and we also have studied certain patterns and the tone and the register which is suitable for different writing. So that was just a brief introduction, a brief review of the topics that we have covered so far. Our today's class is mainly based on writing an article either for a magazine or a newspaper. What we need to see through is how an article is different than the other types of writing. What is the structure that is to be followed while writing an article? What are the main aspects or the main points that are to be observed if a person is ever writing an article that is to be published in a newspaper? So these are some of the things that we will be covering in our today's class. You must be looking on your screen that there is a handout. There is a paper that I would like to share with you, and this is a guideline for writing a magazine, newspaper, or a newspaper article prepared by the University of Cambridge International Examination, which is a very credible and one of the most authentic names in the realm of education. I will be sharing, explaining all these aspects which are relevant to write a magazine or a newspaper article. Along with, I will also share with you a newspaper article that is published in the Daily Dawn today. So we just need to see through making comparison and contrast. That's something that which we talk about writing an article, and we evaluate that article whether all these things are observed in that article and to what extent. The first thing that we need to understand about a magazine or a newspaper article is it's a type of writing which is mainly based on providing information to the reader. The reader of an article, either published in a magazine or a newspaper, there is a big number of people who read something which is published in a newspaper or a magazine. Hence, we can say that there is a massive number of audience who read through our or any article that is published in the newspaper. It is mainly the language which is suitable or the language which is used is classified or categorized as discursive writing. I need to explain a bit about discursive writing, because what type of writing is it and how is it different than the other types of writing. Discursive is derived from the word discuss, which is meant to talk about, write about various aspects of a topic, giving equal weightage to all the different aspects of the topic without arguing too much. Now, once we talk about the topic, so any topic which is relevant, which is suitable, that is to be published in a newspaper or a magazine. We just see through while we compose an article, there must be a selected topic for which we need to have an introduction, what the issue is, what the topic is that is being dealt there in this article. That may be something topical and in the news. Means it shall be usually mainly something that deals with any situation, any issue which is currently debated and discussed in any of the medias, in any of the form of social medias, either electronic or print media. Or it can be a research that is recently published or a proposal which has been put forward by a government or other agency, or the description of the person that the article will concern, right? It means that the article may be about a person, could be any issue, either social, political, religious, or something that is based on the research in any of the fields. And the person who writes an article have an in-depth understanding or information about that topic while covering the multiple aspects of that topic. Sorry students, I was interrupted for some reason, and that is why I have to give a pause. So we are back to the topic that what we were talking about. a magazine article which is discursive in nature, and the topic should have a relevance about any of the issues which are relevant to a number of people, and something that has already been researched. It could be about a research, it could be about any of the issues, either political, social, religious. So unlike a news report, which is informative, and a speech, which is argumentative, a magazine article is basically discursive in nature, right? So discursive means, as I talked about earlier, that it tells us, it gives information about the multiple aspects without favoring something or negating. The writer's main point is just to collect some information as a fact, as it happens, and then we portray or provide to the viewers or the readers. The other thing that should be a part of an article is the background. So the article is likely to fill in the past history of the person or event which the article concerned. Keep this in your mind. So if it is relevant, something about the person, just to portray a complete and comprehensive picture about that event or the person that we are dealing with there in this article, so that readers are fully aware of the necessary facts and reasons why the article has been written and what has led to the current state of affairs, right? So background is again just to give a comprehensive picture to the readers that something, some happening or anything which is relevant and that has taken place as a background of that topic. As I mentioned earlier, that an article is a discursive composition, so there should be a discussion, right? The article is likely to return to the present day situation at this point, discussing and giving different viewpoints of the person or event that we talk about, with details and examples and quotations, and making comparisons with the past or with the similar topics. Though the writer's own viewpoint may be inferred, alternative viewpoints must be given equal weightage and other voices heard. Now remember, there are a few things which are important in that discussion. Some of the words, some of the phrases I have already written in bold. Returning to the topic, what the present day situation is. Anything that we are writing about, the current situation, where does it stand, what actually is happening nowadays, we have to highlight that first, right? Then provide details and examples and quotations and making comparisons. Wherever it is possible, if quotations are available, if you can give examples which are quite necessary, if you can make comparisons, right? Like you talk about any issue that has an importance for the masses at large. So, the something that has already been published might be lacking in certain things. So what do you feel that it has certain other aspects? So you can also make comparisons while writing your article, just to give the viewers or the readers a comprehensive picture about the topic. Though the writer's own viewpoint may be inferred, infer means that the writer is not directly jumping to the conclusions, right? Like in argumentative compositions, the writer's viewpoint is very clear. One jumps to the conclusions and she negate all the other aspects. Whereas in articles, which is a discursive, writing, so the writer's viewpoint is not directly portrayed. It is inferred, means the reader make out the meaning what the writer actually tries to convey in this article. Alternate viewpoint must be given equal weightage. It is again important that the writer's viewpoint is something different, but there are a number of people who might be very much expert, who might be very much skilled, who might have expertise in that field. And if the article writer gives their viewpoint, shares the information that those people who are expert in that field, it will give weightage. It will make the people understand more easily. It will make the people be convinced conveniently, right? And that is the reason we also need to give equal weightage to the others' views. Then there is another thing which is also a part of your article, and that is classified as predictions, right? Once you read through any article, you must come across like the writer has also predicted some outcome, the consequences or the consequential effects of some actions that are being undertaken either by the government or the person or by any agencies. So this is what, again, not something, which is not concrete, which is something fictitious. It is something based on certain concrete evidences, right? So something that we are predicting about the situation, if we are writing about, so we shall have some very concrete and solid reasons that if these practices are to be carried out, these will be the outcome. These will be the consequential effect that the people at large will be facing in the coming years. At this point, the article may deal with the future developments or predicted outcome of the present situation, that a person will go on to become even more famous and successful, or that a current pre- predicament, predicament will become worse if nothing is done about, or which side will win the political debate. So this is what I have explained, that predicament is meant for something, the predictions, and the writer predicts something at this stage. If these practices will go on, so these will be the outcome. But again, that will not be something personal to the writer. It is something that is based on genuine facts, concrete reasoning, with certain exemplification. Obviously, when we write something, so there must be a conclusion. So while writing an article, the conclusion is somehow a bit different. The article needs a neat conclusion, which may be an ironic reference or a humorous comment or an evaluation of the different viewpoints or a reference back to the beginning of the article or a quotation, right? Ironic reference is a reference that is made ironically. Irony is a figurative terminology that is used for two different extreme situations. Like something might be devastating, okay? Humorous might be in a way like people end up their articles in a way where they comment something in a humorous way, either making some like a kind of funny comment, right? Or an evaluation of the different viewpoints. That is another aspect. This is another way that we can conclude our article while evaluating all the different viewpoints as we discussed earlier, or a reference back to the beginning. So students, these are some of the main points that we need to observe whenever we are writing an article. Starting with the topic, then see the background of the topic or the person that we are dealing with. Then there should be a very comprehensive discussion about the topic while providing every detail, every example, every information whichsoever is available, and then providing the other viewpoints, the alternative viewpoints. As I talk about, like there can also be the opinion of some experts of that field who are well known, who are very well aware of their expertise throughout the country or might be there globally, or globally they are known for. Prediction is again to reinforce the writer jumps to certain conclusions and sees through the outcome or the development of those actions in the future, right? Finally, a person has to conclude. Now, let's see through this article that I have taken from the newspaper that is published today. And when we see through whether these things, whatever we have discussed, have been provided there in the article or not. So the very first thing was about topic and which has a relevance about the person or a situation or any action that have been undertaken by any agency or the government, right? So this article, which is mainly dealing with the learning dilemma, the learning situation that is being observed there in Pakistan, particularly and generally across the globe, where the learning situation is somehow not as it is observed usually or in a normal situation, right? So the article writer has given her viewpoint that whatever actions are being undertaken by the government, whether they will be counterproductive, whether the learning procedures or the means of learning which are being adopted by the government, they will be quite sustainable, helpful for the learners. We look at the very first paragraph that has already been highlighted. Among the largest legacies of the pandemic will be learning losses suffered by students, impacting livelihoods and the national economy, right? So this is just the start of the topic, and we can understand that the writer talks about certain actions which have been undertaken by the government and how to overcome a number of people who are students, whether they are being at loss, their education is being at risk or impacting livelihoods, like how the lives of the people are being suffered and the national economy, our economy, whether it is being at stake. No wonder then the Prime Minister last week reiterated the need for a joint strategy across provincial authorities to resume educational activity as soon as possible. The problem is well identified. The solution, a haphazard mix of virtual and traditional broadcasts offering less so. So this gives us just the current situation of pandemic where all the different walks of life are being at threat or being at risk because of this situation. And the Prime Minister has undertaken some actions. A strategy is being adopted just to overcome the situation. We just see through the government should be clear that the biggest challenge lies on the demand or supply side. Pre-pandemic, Pakistan already had the second highest global rate of the school-age children who do not attend school, more than 40% going forward. The main challenge will be to get students who stop attending school during the lockdown to come back. The economic and health impact of the pandemic means that many leavers will be forced to work instead, while others, especially girls, will be compelled to take up unpaid caring responsibilities. Before spending on e-learning platforms, the government should budget for stipends to incentive attendance. Now, as we have talked about, the writer provides or gives some background of the topic, the background of the situation. So there in this paragraph, we also have seen the writer reflects on the background, the situation of our education, particularly in the recent past, and see how can we overcome the situation in such a scenario in the current days. Then see the next two paragraph again. The writer talks about certain research and you know some some actions about the agencies and the government that have undertaken. So there the writer talks about the other aspect, as we have mentioned there. There is a discussion where the writer gives equal weightage to multiple aspects of the topic, right? And provide some reasons, some evidences, some exemplification. So there she is sharing some research that has been undertaken by some person recently, and what are the outcome of those of that research. This means that the seductiveness of virtual learning as a catch-all solution demands scrutiny. The state's excitement about e-learning predates the pandemic and may need to be tempered. It is highlighted in the National Education Policy 2017-2025 as a route to upskilling Pakistan youth. Recently, the Education Minister has touted the imminent launch of an e-Talim course. So you also have seen that our Minister of Education has recently announced that there is a channel, the Pakistani channel on Pakistan television, where e-learning initiative has been undertaken for different level of students. So they will be providing online courses, online discussions to all the students. Post-pandemic education initiative must be responsive. Now, what the writer talks about another aspect, okay, and that is, now see, the situation has emerged. We have been facing the current situation. So, what will be the consequences of this situation in the coming days? So, the writer talks about the post-pandemic means the outcome, and that is all the prediction of the writer. We just jump to the last part of this article that says, despite this context, the question of what constitutes an effective curriculum remains a political and ideological battleground. The focus on educational outcomes, for example, literacy, critical thinking, STEM skills, remains scant. Instead, there is a push to launch a national curriculum that that promotes populist nationalism and undermines the post-pandemic need for tailored, responsive teaching, as well as right-wing washing of educational content. Consider Punjab's recent curriculum bill that requires Urdu literature and Pakistani studies textbook, among others, to be vetted by Muttahida Ulama Board. Now, she is a bit cynical about the government's initiative, where the writer believes that what has been our curriculum that is designed for our coming generation, but see, there are some other religious aspects, the other aspects which are being involved or made a part of our curriculum, and she is a bit cynical about those actions. Ultimately, one wonders whether the powers that we truly comprehend the value of education to the nation's progress. What else explains the budget cuts of educational expenditure just as the need becomes truly critical? Now, see, we have talked about towards the conclusion, a person can be ironical or a humorist, right? So she is sharing a pathetic condition that if the government is quite sincere to take all these initiatives, but see, on the other hand, the recently budget that has been announced, so there is a cut. The educational budget has been lessened by the government. So she is a bit quite critical about the actions that are being undertaken by the government is somehow not counterproductive. Now, students, what we have seen that an article which is discursive in nature, that is published in a newspaper or a magazine, right? and we have also been through some of its contents which are to be observed in an article. So, and we also have been through an article as an example. We have observed that those things are also observed in the article that I have shared with you people. Okay, so you must also remember that writing an article is not something quite easy. It is something very difficult. It is something very challenging. But if we know that these are the points that we need to look into, and these are the things which are to be observed in article, so we may be able to write something in effective manner, right? But again, I would say it is somehow a bit challenging because the audience, the number of people who will be reading through our articles, which are ever published in the newspaper. So we need to be very much apprehensive, and we need to be very much cautious about all these things, right? I hope that this will be quite helpful for you just to understand what an article is all about. And if you are interested writing an article that is to be published in the newspapers or a magazines, follow these steps. So you will be able to write something that is read by a number of people, right? बेटा इसी के साथ हम अपनी आज की इस क्लास को वाइंड अप कर रहे हैं और इन अल्फाज के साथ कि अल्लाह ताला इन हालात से हमें जल्द निकालें जो करंट सिचुएशन है which is quite alarming everywhere, not only in Pakistan but across the globe. So may Allah accept our prayers and allow us, grant us a healthy life in the coming time. Thank you all. Allah Hafiz.